always imagined my graduation day as the moment everything would finally make sense. 4 years of late-night study sessions, part-time jobs, skipped meals, and constant anxiety. 4 years of doing everything alone. And yet, I still hoped. I still believed my parents might show up and prove that they cared, even if just for one day. I remember standing behind the curtains of the auditorium, wearing my gown, adjusting my cap with shaking hands. Everyone around me was buzzing with excitement, taking photos, hugging family, holding flowers. I tried to smile along with them, tried to pretend I wasn't checking my phone every 30 seconds. On the way, I texted my mom. Delivered. No reply. My dad. He hadn't responded to me in 6 months, not since our argument about how I should stop wasting time in school and start making money. Called. Straight to voicemail. The ceremony began. The lights dimmed. The music started. And the first tear slid down my cheek before I could stop it. Kept scanning the audience. Every time a door opened, my heart jumped. Maybe now. Maybe they ran late. Maybe they cared just a little. But the seats I reserved for them, front row right behind the faculty, stayed empty. Completely empty. Not a coat. Not a bag. Not a shadow of a person. Just emptiness staring back at me. When they called my name, everything around me slowed. Cheers erupted for others. But for me, silence. No familiar voices. No clapping from the people who should have been proud of me. Only my classmates who politely applauded because that's what people do when a stranger walks across the stage. I held my diploma cover and forced a smile for the camera. In that moment I felt something deep inside me crack. Not loudly, but quietly, like a piece of me falling away forever. After the ceremony I walked outside alone. The sun was blinding and every direction I looked, I saw families celebrating. Laughing, hugging, crying tears of joy. One dad lifted his daughter into the air. One mom ran over with a giant bouquet. Another family held a huge sign with their son's name on it. Kept holding my phone. Still no messages. Hours passed. Not a word. That night I went home, removed my graduation gown and hung it in my closet. And I whispered to myself. They really didn't come. I didn't know it then, but that moment, standing in a dark room, staring at a forgotten gown, was the beginning of everything that would follow. Because 2 days later, my parents would suddenly reappear. Not with apologies. Not with explanations. But with a demand so shameless, so shocking. It would change my life forever. A demand for $4,100. And when I said no, they did something I could never imagine my own parents doing. They called the police on me. To understand what happened next, you need to know the kind of parents I grew up with. My mom and dad weren't bad people on the outside. To neighbors, they were hardworking, traditional, strict but caring. But behind closed doors, their love was like a contract. Conditional, transactional, paid only when it benefited them. Growing up, everything I earned, birthday money, gifts from relatives, even cash from small jobs, went straight into their hands. We're teaching you responsibility, they said. You'll thank us later, they promised. But the truth was simple. They needed money, and I was a source. They controlled what I wore, who I talked to, how long I could be out, even what career path I should follow. When I said I wanted to go to college, my dad almost laughed. What's wrong with working in a store? People need money, not degrees. My mom always stayed quieter, but her silence was its own weapon. She rarely stood up for me. Instead, she allowed my dad's voice to fill every room until mine disappeared. Still I worked, save. I studied late into the night, sitting at the kitchen table while they watched TV. I applied for scholarships without telling them because I knew they would stop me. They always told me education was a waste of time. But I got in. And suddenly everything changed. The moment they realized my tuition was covered, they cut me off emotionally. No interest, no support, no involvement. They barely asked how I was doing. Any time I came home from campus, they treated me like a guest. Or worse, an inconvenience. But here's the important part. Whenever they needed money, suddenly I became their child again. Phone call here. Message there. Can you help us? Just this once. You know we raised you, right? Manipulation dressed as affection. So when they ghosted my graduation, I wasn't surprised. But I still hurt. I still hoped. That small, stupid part of me believed they might choose me for once. But of course they didn't. And I tried to move on. I really did. 2 days after the ceremony, I started my new job orientation. I was excited, nervous but excited. I finally felt like my life was moving forward. And that's when my phone buzzed. Mom, call me. Urgent. My stomach immediately tightened. There were no congratulations. No, sorry we missed your big day. Nothing. Just urgent. When I called, she answered on the first ring. Her voice was strangely warm, almost sweet. Hi, honey. How are you? How was graduation? Froze. She knew she didn't come. She knew she ignored me. Yet she acted like we'd spoken yesterday. It was fine, I said flatly. That's wonderful, she replied. Listen, Dad, and I need your help with something. There it was. The real reason. The only reason. We need $4,100, she said. Not asked. Not explained. Just stated. As if I owed it. As if it was obvious. That moment something in me shifted. Not anger, not yet. But a clear, cold understanding. This was never going to stop unless I stopped it. 4,100. I repeated, thinking maybe I misheard. Yes, she said, casual as if asking me to pass the salt. We'll pay you back fast. Maybe next month. You know how hard life is for us. I stayed silent. My dad took the phone. We need it by Friday, he said. Not a greeting, not a question, an order. We already counted you in. Counted me in. As what? Finally asked. As someone who owes us for everything we've done, he said. Don't act like you forgot. And just like that, every memory of their support came flooding back. Every lecture, every guilt trip, every time they reminded me that I cost them money simply by existing. Dad, I said calmly. I just graduated. I don't even have my first paycheck yet. You have savings, he snapped. Don't lie. I did have savings. Barely enough to cover my first 2 months of rent before my job fully paid. But how did he even know? Then I remembered. Years ago, when I was still under their roof, my mom helped me open my bank account. She remembered everything I told her, even the parts she wasn't supposed to use against me. Spend less on your selfish dreams, my dad continued, and help your family for once. Family. Funny word coming from people who didn't show up when it mattered most. Dad kept lecturing, but my mind drifted. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't have to obey. I can't help right now, I said softly. I need that money to survive until my pay starts. There was silence. Then a laugh. Short, cold one. You're joking, he said. Tell her she's joking. He must have put me on speaker because my mom's voice came through. Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. You know we raised you. You owe us. Always that word. My heart beat faster. Not from panic, but from something stronger. The first spark of self-respect I'd ever felt toward them. I said no, I repeated. Dead silence. For a long moment no one breathed. Then my mom spoke, her voice turning sharp. You're choosing money over family. Well, I was choosing myself for the first time. Hung up. Not angrily. Just done. For the first time I stood up for myself. I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 hours later the storm arrived. Text after text. Call after call. Voicemails full of guilt trips, fake crying, threats to cut me off. Cut me off from what? They weren't in my life to begin with. And then, the final message. If you don't send the money, we'll go to the authorities. First I laughed. Authorities for what? Not giving them money. But they were serious. Terrifyingly serious. And the next day my nightmare became real. A police officer knocked on my door. It was a quiet morning. I had made coffee, opened my laptop, and was replying to emails for my new job orientation when I heard a knock. Not a soft one. Firm, official, heavy knock. Froze. When I opened the door, a uniformed police officer stood outside, holding a clipboard. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. "Are you?" he asked, confirming my name. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling. "I received a welfare concern call about you. We need to talk." A welfare concern. I stepped aside, letting the officer into the living room. My legs felt weak. My mind raced. Had something happened to my parents? Did they get hurt? Were they in danger and blaming me for not answering? But when he began speaking, the truth hit me like ice water. "We got a report that you're having a mental health crisis," he said. "Your parents are worried you might harm yourself." For a moment I couldn't even speak. My parents, who ignored my graduation, who demanded money, who insulted me, had called the police claiming I was a danger to myself just because I said a no? I swallowed hard. "Officer, I'm fine. I'm not in any crisis. I'm working from home." I have no idea why they'd say that. He nodded slowly, observing my calm. "You seem fine to me. But I need to ask a few more questions, just to close the report." I answered everything, quietly, honestly. He finally closed his notebook and said, "I'm going to be real with you. We get false reports like this sometimes. Usually from family disputes. Do you want to tell me what actually happened?" For the first time I told someone the truth. I told him about the graduation, the months of silence, the sudden call for money, their threats, and now this. He listened carefully, and when I finished, he sighed. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "You're not the first person whose parents weaponized the system against them." Weaponized? That's exactly what they did. He gave me advice. How to document everything, how to protect myself, and how to block further false claims. "I'll mark the report as unfounded," he finally said. "You're in no danger. And you didn't do anything wrong." When the door closed behind him, I stood there for a long time. My parents didn't call to check on me. They didn't call to apologize. They didn't even call to gloat. They called the police in a final attempt to control me. And that was the moment everything inside me shifted. Not sadness, not confusion, not even disappointment, but betrayal, sharp, clean, and final. And beneath that betrayal, something new began forming. The seed of revenge. Not violent revenge. Not cruel revenge. But a revenge built from truth, boundaries, and the kind of strength they never believed I had. My revenge didn't start with screaming or fighting. It started with silence. A silence that I controlled. The first step was emotional. I stopped expecting anything from them. No apologies. No love. No validation. The second step was strategic. I blocked their numbers. All of them. The third step was protection. I called my bank and secured my accounts. I changed passwords, added security questions, froze unnecessary withdrawals, and even opened a second account at a different bank. The fourth step was legal. I documented everything. Screenshots, calls, voicemails, the police report number. Every detail that showed how they tried to manipulate me. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. Because for the first time I had leverage. I had truth. I had freedom. But the real revenge, that came later. Because cutting them off financially, the thing they depended on, forced them to face the one truth they always denied. I didn't need them. But they needed me. And without my support, without access to my savings, without a way to guilt me, their world began cracking. I learned from a relative, one of the few who still spoke to me, that my parents were furious. "They said you abandoned your family," she told me. "They said you betrayed them after everything they did for you." I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. Because I didn't need to. My absence was speaking louder than any words could. Meanwhile, my life began changing. My job paid well. I moved to a better apartment. I made new friends. I met people who actually celebrated my achievements. For once, I wasn't looking backward. But my parents were. And 2 weeks later, they called from new numbers. Multiple ones. Blocked ones. Online ones. This time they didn't ask for money. They demanded it. "We know you got your first paycheck," one message said. "You better send what you owe." Another one. "We'll come to your job if we have to." And finally, "Your father is coming to your apartment. We know where you live." My heart dropped. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was harassment. It was control. It was them attempting to claw back the power they lost. But I had something now that changed everything. Power they could no longer touch. It was a Saturday afternoon when the knock came. Not the firm knock of the police. Not the polite knock of a neighbor. But a pounding, angry, loud, demanding. I knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. My father. His face was red, lips tight, eyes burning with a mix of entitlement and fury. Behind him, my mother stood stiffly, arms crossed, her expression cold. I opened the door only a few inches, keeping the chain locked. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Dad pushed forward, rattling the chain. "Let us in. We need to talk." "No," I said calmly. He froze. He wasn't used to hearing that word from me. "No," he repeated like the concept was foreign. Mom stepped forward. "Stop being dramatic and open the door. We're family." Family. That word again. Always used when they needed something. "I'm done talking," I said. "You called the police on me." Dad scoffed. "We were worried. You didn't answer. You were acting unstable. I said no to giving you money. That's all." Dad's eyes narrowed. "You owe us $4,100. And you're going to pay." Something inside me snapped into perfect alignment. "No," I said again. Firmer this time. Dad lifted his hand and slammed it against the door. "We raised you. Fed you. Gave you a roof. And I earned my future," I said. "Everything I have now I worked for. Alone. Without your help. Without your support. You didn't even come to my graduation." Mom's lips pressed together. She looked away. I continued. "You ignored me for months. Then you showed up only when you needed money. That's not love. That's not parenting. That's using me." Dad growled. "We're not leaving until you pay." "Then you'll be standing there for a long time," I said. And then I did it. Closed the door. Locked it. Double-locked it. I leaned against it and breathed for the first time in what felt like years. Outside they shouted. Insults. That. Banging fists. But inside, silence. Powerful silence. After 20 minutes of yelling, they finally walked away. And I knew with complete certainty. That was the last time they would ever have access to me. The next morning my apartment felt different. Lighter. Calmer. Almost like the air itself understood something toxic had been removed. I made breakfast, simple eggs and toast, but it tasted like freedom. And for the first time in my life I realized something important. Peace isn't given. Peace is created. And I finally created mine. Over the next few weeks, everything fell into place. Focused on my career. Saved money. I met people who uplifted me. I learned what healthy relationships looked like. Ones based on care, not control. I even bought myself flowers. Not because I needed them, but because I deserved something soft after so many years of hardness. And the best part, my parents eventually stopped trying. Maybe they realized they couldn't manipulate me anymore. Maybe they found someone else to control. Maybe they finally got tired. Whatever the reason, the silence from them became permanent. And for once, it didn't hurt. It healed. One evening, as I walked home from work, I passed by a small graduation celebration happening at a nearby restaurant. Families cheering. Students smiling. Cameras flashing. And I felt it. The ache of what I never had. But instead of sadness, something else came next. Pride. Pride that despite everything, despite the loneliness, despite the betrayal, despite the manipulation, I crossed that graduation stage. Alone, yes, but strong. I whispered to myself. I made it. For a long time I thought saying no made me a bad child, selfish child, an ungrateful child. But now I understand something that took me years to learn. Saying no to manipulation is not betrayal. Saying no to abuse is not disrespect. Saying no to toxicity is not selfishness. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is choose yourself. My parents ghosted my graduation. They demanded $4,100. They weaponized guilt. They called the police when I refused to give in. But I still rose. I still moved forward. I still built a life they can no longer control. And here is the truth I want anyone listening to remember. You don't owe anyone access to you. Not even family. Especially not family who only shows up when they need something from you. Love should never feel like a transaction. Support shouldn't vanish the moment you stop paying for it. Family shouldn't become chains you spend your life trying to break. You have the right to protect your peace. You have the right to set boundaries. And you have the right to walk away. From guilt, from manipulation, from people who only love you when it benefits them. Because at the end of the day, your future belongs to you. Your happiness belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. Not to those who ghosted you. Not to those who used you. Not to those who tried to break you. And if you're listening to this, wondering if you should finally choose yourself, let my story be your answer. Choose yourself. Because sometimes, choosing yourself is the only way to survive. And the only way to truly begin.